Hello and welcome back to the Sky and the Shy podcast. I'm your host, Edwin Garcia, and today we're going to get right into it, talking about the Chicago Sky's victory against the Dallas Wings on Thursday night in the first round of the playoffs. The Sky won 81-64, and we're going to go deep into the game, talk about what happened, and also preview Sunday night's matchup against the Minnesota Lynx in the second round. So let's get into it. What an exciting game that was, with the Chicago Sky coming out victorious against the Dallas Wings in Chicago. One game elimination matchup, and the Sky pulled it off. The Sky got the win that they've been looking for all season, the validation they've been looking for all season, in a season that's been so up and down, 16-16. And as we've mentioned before, for every great moment, the Sky show us an equally poor moment. But on Thursday, we ended up with more good than bad and a victory instead of a defeat. So let's break it down. When the game started off, it started off pretty good for the Sky. They got out to a small lead. I think it was like 4-0 to start, and then it was 9-8 Chicago Sky up, and then they really went on a run. And when they went on a run, it quickly became a blowout scenario, with the Sky being well in front of the Dallas Wings. I think the Dallas Wings, a bit of inexperience kind of played a role, especially early on in the game. It seemed like they just weren't quite ready to play at this level, and the Chicago Sky were at home, even though home has not really been a kind place for the Chicago Sky. They've struggled at home, but I think being at home was still a better scenario than starting off on the road. And that showed in the beginning with those early game jitters. The Sky kind of handled that a little bit better than the Wings did. The Wings definitely struggled with that to start, and that's why they got a little bit of a slow start initially. And the Sky really just went rolling from then on. They won the first quarter convincingly, 25-14, and then they won the second quarter equally as convincingly, 19-15. They were up by as many as 21 points in the first half of the game. So, like I said, they were in cruise control. They were playing, some of the best basketball they've played all year. They've had a few games like this, like the 30-point blowout victory against the Seattle Storm, a convincing win against the Aces. Early in the season, they had some good wins as well. And this was reminding everyone of that, especially that first half. It was like, this is the Chicago Sky team that no one wants to play, a team that's firing on all cylinders, that's just dominating on both ends of the court and just overwhelming teams with the offensive firepower they have on the roster, on the bench. It was just so much and too much for the Wings. Players I want to definitely highlight, and we'll talk more about them later, is Kalia Copper. She's been incredible all year. She's really been incredible for a while, but this year's definitely been her best year. And again, in these kinds of games, I mentioned it on my article on Swish Appeal, which you should definitely be reading Swish Appeal if you like the WNBA and women's basketball in general. I talk about how Kalia Copper's been an all-star and how star players respond in these kind of games. That's what these games are about. The games end up usually coming down to which star player really brings out their best. And Kalia Copper is a star, and Kalia Copper brought out her best tonight for sure, scoring 23 points and really some really tough, almost circus-like shots with her contorting her body so much and coming up with these layups and these little runners and screaming and hollering and being aggressive. It was really a sight to see, and it looked like even when the Dallas Wings put Kalia Copper in a tough situation, when she was being doubled, when she was being fouled, when she was just flailing to get a shot off, she was still making those baskets and making hard baskets. And when a player is that hot, that good, you just shake their hand and say, hey, I challenged you as much as is humanly possible. If you're going to make those kind of baskets, then hey, that's just the kind of night you're having and the kind of night we're having, and you accept that. And that's what Kalia Copper did. She was just immovable. She was just unbelievable, unstoppable. And the Sky, I don't know if they lose without her, but they definitely don't have as easy of a time as they did. And even this game wasn't easy. The score ended up 81-64, but anyone who watched the game knows that second half really tested the Sky in certain points, especially near the end of the second quarter. I was live tweeting on Sky and the Shy Twitter account that I have. You should all be following me there if you're watching this or listening to this podcast. You know that I kind of share all my thoughts about the Chicago Sky and the WNBA at large on that Twitter account. And on that Twitter account, I mentioned when things were looking good and the team was up by over 20 points, I did say the Wings' job at this point is to get it to 15. If you get it to 15, going into halftime, you give yourselves an opportunity. All you need is a good start to the third quarter, and you're back in this game. I thought if it was more than 15 points that they were down by, it would be too much. It would just be too much to try to make, maybe 3 runs in that second half to come back. I think that was just going to be too much to ask. So I said that was their goal. And if they can stay focused on that and get to that number, they're going to give themselves a puncher's chance. And they did exactly that. I tweeted that out, and within 5 minutes, the second quarter was done, and they were down by exactly 15 points. And I said, okay, this is it. The opening third quarter is going to decide if this game is over or if this game is still very much going to be a competitive competition until the end. And props to the Dallas Wings. They responded. They came out in the third quarter and were extremely strong. They scored 21 points and held the Sky to 11 points. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, I just want to give a quick overview of this game here. And that was just a credit to them for not giving up and knowing, hey, we can swindle this, we can diminish this lead and get back in the game. And they very much got back in the game with that third quarter. There was not a Chicago Sky fan that thought, oh, this game was over heading into the fourth, right? It was, I believe, a 4-point game at that point, and it got as close to 3 points. But again, the Sky just had a little bit too much. They were just a little bit too aggressive, had a little bit too much firepower. And again, Kalia Copper stepped up. Candace Parker stepped up big late, especially in that fourth quarter. They started running some actions for her in the post. They started looking for her on the blocks, and she started being a little bit more aggressive, looking for her basket, and she got her baskets. And that's ultimately what helped the Sky go from, 3-point, 4-point, 5-point, 6-point game to opening it up in the fourth and kind of, finishing things up. So those were some big moments. And again, this is a huge game for the Sky. We're going to talk about it a little bit more, but now I want to kind of, dive into, the good and bad with the Sky's performance here. In the end, it was great because they won, but there's some things that I found interesting as well. And one thing was, again, in that third quarter, shooting just went way down. 3-point shooting, the entire game was way down. The Sky were 4-21 from the 3-point line. And again, for a team that's trying to win a championship, you go 4 for 21 shooting threes. That's just, you're lucky to win a game kind of in that scenario. It's concerning. They're usually not that poor of a shooting team, right? Shooting, I believe, 19% from 3. I don't think that'll happen again. But again, these are one-game playoffs, and it's so tough that a season just gets decided on just one game against an opponent. But hey, that's the scenarios that these teams are in, and that's the kind of performance they gave. So that wasn't good. They did a great job rebounding. Looking at the stats here, 47 rebounds compared to Dallas Wings' 35 rebounds. So they out-rebounded them. That was great. The turnovers were still troubling, 13-12, so they did not win the turnover battle. And again, 13 turnovers, way too much. We know the Sky have had a turnover problem since the last 4 years. So they just can't handle the ball well. It's just a fact. With the Sky, you're just hoping, can you stay under double digits? Give me 8-9 turnovers. I'll take that. If you told me for the upcoming game against the Lynx, which we'll get to in a little bit, if you told me they're going to have 8 or 9 turnovers, I would sign for that right now, because I'm very afraid you'll end up in the 15s, 16s, and again, creating scenarios where you're going to be at a disadvantage just turning the ball over that much. And in this game on Thursday night, there was a little bit too much turning the ball over. Good, luckily for the Sky, the Wings also had 12 turnovers, so that kind of evens itself out. And it's just a shame for the Wings not to get the victory. Obviously I'm happy about them losing, but for every victor there is the other side, and I feel for their fan base and their team. Again, they kind of didn't take care of the keys to the game. I thought, they got that big deficit. You're down by 21 on the road. It's tough to come back, and you saw they got close, but they never really got a lead, at all in the second half, because again, you dug such a huge hole. They cut it down to 15, but again, that's still, you have to have multiple runs to really, take the lead and keep the lead in a scenario like that. And it was just too much of a cushion you gave the Sky, and that's from the first half. You can't win the first half. You can't win a basketball game by winning the first half, but you can lose a basketball game in the first half. And I feel like the Dallas Wings kind of lost the basketball game in the first half. They gave themselves a puncher's chance, but they did not give themselves a legitimate chance, and that's unfortunate for them. 3-point shooting was also very poor, 36%, 8 for 22, so only a little bit better than the Sky. And when we look at that percentage, they played each other 3 times, and the 2 times the Dallas Wings won against the Sky in the regular season, they shot over 50% from 3. So I thought one of the keys was how does Dallas do in their perimeter shooting? Are they very, very good in that 50%, or closer to just a average on that 40-30%? They ended up more on that 30%, and that's another one of the many factors that resulted in this loss. So yeah, obviously for the Chicago Sky, this was a great win. Their playoff wins are difficult; they're hard to come by, and the players that need to step up stepped up. Every player in the starting five was in double digits in scoring, except for Azare Stevens. They had a really good performance from their starting five. The bench didn't give you too much. I think Dana Evans played well, even though she only had 3 points. She was very productive and very active, on the glass, facilitating in the offense. I think everyone's, preached the praises of Dana Evans for quite some time now, and it's well deserved. And in fact, in the media press conference after, James Wade joked that the general manager of the Sky made a big mistake by not drafting her initially and having to trade for her. And of course, the general manager of the Sky is also James Wade. So it was pretty funny hearing him admit what we've all kind of known. And I've mentioned before that, hey, clearly he made a mistake if he had to trade for the player he could have just picked up. But it was nice to hear him kind of admit it and even crack a joke about it. Of course, you can do all those things if you're winning. I'm sure if they lost, you wouldn't hear a comment like that. But hey, when it's good to be king, right? When you're winning, you can kind of make fun of yourself and laugh about it and not really worry too much. But it was an interesting thing that he actually admitted it. I also want to give a shout out to Stephanie Dawson. She played really well. The stat line doesn't really tell the whole story. It says she only had 2 points, 7 rebounds, again, working hard on the boards. Only 1 foul, and we know sometimes Dawson can kind of get some of those ticky-tack fouls and get into foul trouble. And coming off the bench and avoiding foul trouble, going hard on the boards, I think she really played a lot better than her stat line says. She gave good energy. She gave good minutes off of the bench. 22 minutes when she missed the last couple games due to some injury issues with her knee. For her to come back and Wade said, hey, she's clear. She's ready to go. She's fine. We heard that, and I heard that. I was still like, well, is she though? Like, I don't know. And, turns out she was. And if she was hurting, she didn't really show it. She moved, totally normally and didn't look to me like she was, preferring a certain leg or being a little, gingerly or tentative on the court. It looked like she was just her normal self, and she played really well. And you got to give her credit for, working hard on her rehabbing her small injuries there and being ready to play in the must-win, playoff game. And she played pretty well, so I definitely want to shout that out. And then the only kind of, there was a few negatives, we mentioned the shooting, but as far as player production, Diamond DeShields really didn't do much. It was a rough night for her. She only had 4 points, and she just didn't play well. We saw her take a couple shots that looked, really suspect. I think her first shot was like a desperation 3 as the clock was expiring. She hit the backboard hard, if I remember that correctly. She was 1 for 8 from the field. She just didn't have a good game. And, we've talked about that with Diamond. She can't get into a good rhythm. We saw her a couple games ago drop 30 points and look magnificent. But again, for every one of those performances, we have another one that's equally disappointing. I do believe in Diamond DeShields' talent. She's explosive. She's dynamic. She's a great scorer, great defender. She's been an all-star before, and I think she'll be an all-star again. It's tough when the team kind of put her on the bench now, and she's not in that spot she's used to, and she's trying to adjust. There's a time when Diamond DeShields, when she talked, she said, why can't I be the best player in this league? And I haven't heard that kind of confidence from Diamond DeShields in a while, which is understandable. Confidence gets shaken with things like, being benched and no longer being a top option, and still trying to, act as if you are and still play with the same aggression. And I hope she keeps playing with the same aggression, because I know that it's very likely, it would not shock me at all if she drops 23, 24, 25 points against the Lynx, because she has that ability. But also wouldn't surprise me if she scores 4 points, has 3 rebounds, and then 1 assist in 18 minutes of play, right? So I'm just hoping we get the best Diamond DeShields. I hope she stays focused and keeps her eye on the prize here, winning a championship and being part of a championship team, because I think her contributions can 100% affect the outcome of the game, which we'll get into in a little bit with this upcoming matchup against the Minnesota Lynx. But yeah, it was a fantastic win, and again, it was advancing past the first round, which they failed to do last year, and now they're back in the second round, which is somewhere they haven't been since 2019, And if they win on Sunday against the Lynx, and we're going to preview that matchup in just a moment here, if they win, they would be in the semifinals, which is somewhere they haven't been in since 2016. So at this point, we're starting to get to that level. It's getting tougher and tougher, and the level of basketball is getting higher and higher. And every win is putting this team in the history books as one of the greatest Chicago Sky teams of all time. It puts them in that conversation. Because again, like I said, although the regular season has been disappointing, the goal is to win a championship. I'll take this regular season if it means a championship, no problem. I would have liked 20-10 as well, but I don't really care about that if you get the ring. The ring's all that matters, and they're still in position. They're one of 6 teams that can say, hey, we still have a chance to achieve our main goal right now. So that's great. They were able to beat the Dallas Wings, which was a great thing to do. You kind of had a microcosm of the entire season in this game, right? Started off well, played wonderfully. Then they had that rough third quarter. Now it's a narrow margin of victory. You're a little bit nervous, and guess what? They pulled it off. And it's time now to prepare because, again, the WNBA season, even in the playoffs, is brutal. You get one game, your whole season's on. Then you win that one, and you got to do it again, which is really, really rough. But, hey, that's the way the format is now. We all knew this going into the season, so it's a reason why the regular season matters. You need to make sure you perform well to try to avoid these situations. But, hey, they won their game. Now they are going up to Minnesota to play the Minnesota Lynx on Sunday in the second round of the WNBA playoffs. It's time to preview the matchup. So Chicago Sky against the Minnesota Lynx in Minnesota, and the Chicago Sky will play Sunday at 4 p.m. CT, Central Time. So if you're in a different time zone, check your local listings. It's going to be on ESPN2, so that should be pretty simple to look up and double check. But again, you don't want to miss this game. It's part of the back-to-backs with this game and also the other matchup in the second round, which is the Seattle Storm against the Phoenix Mercury. So it's going to be an exciting, day of games, back-to-back games for the second round, just like it was for the first round. And the Sky will be playing the Minnesota Lynx, who are, more than a formidable opponent. They went 20-10 this year. They had a really good regular season, ended up on the 3 seed, and that's why they're going to have home court advantage against the Sky, who ended as the 6 seed in this season's standings. So this game definitely makes me nervous. If you are subscribed to my YouTube channel or have checked it out, I made my predictions for the second round for the Chicago Sky matchup and also the Seattle Storm Phoenix Mercury game. And for those of you who already checked it out, you know that I picked the Minnesota Lynx. Now, again, I'm not rooting for the Lynx, not at all. I'm rooting for the Chicago Sky to be victorious. But, if I'm being quite honest, I'm nervous. I'm nervous about how good this Minnesota Lynx team has been. I've watched them play a lot this year, and they're just really good. Sylvia Fowles is playing amazing. She does not look like a savvy veteran. She looks like a player in their prime, just gobbling up all the boards and just being her normal dominant self. They have a lot of firepower on the Minnesota Lynx. There's a reason to the Lynx dynasty. They won a lot of championships before, and they can absolutely do it again. And, if I had to put my life on the line, I would bet on the Minnesota Lynx. They're at home. They've been playing good basketball. They have some dominant bigs on the roster. I think they're going to, gobble up the boards. I think they're going to get a bunch of second chance opportunities, and I think they have the advantage on the one-on-one matchups they have in the post. And it's going to be a lot for the Chicago Sky to overcome. And again, it's a one-game matchup, so anything can happen. Absolutely, does the Sky have a chance? Of course they have a chance. They have a lot of firepower too, right? They have Candace Parker. They have 3 All-Stars. On the bench, they have 2 All-Stars. On the bench, they have a gold medal Olympian player in Stephanie Dawson. They have the firepower. It would not surprise me at all if Quigley goes for 23 points on 5 for 7 shooting from 3. Vandersloot got 12 dimes. Candace Parker dropped 27. Diamond DeShields had 18 points off the bench, and she was explosive. And that's kind of the way that scenario goes, right? The turnovers stayed down there at 9 turnovers, right? They win the rebounding battle, and next thing you know, guess what? Chicago Sky pulled off the upset. And I think it would be an upset, though, because I think the Minnesota Lynx have consistently been better. They have the repertoire. They have the wins this season. They have the dominant players in the same positions. The Chicago Sky have good players, and I think they edge them out. So, to me, that's going to be the key. Can you keep Sylvia Fowles off the boards? Can we get some good shooting from, Ashley Quigley? And even Candace Parker. She played an okay game, but she did not play an incredible game. So we need an incredible game. Again, these are the kind of games that's why she's here. James Wade mentioned without Candace Parker, he felt like the team was knocking on the screen door. And with Candace Parker, he said he feels like now they're knocking on the actual door, and they're knocking on the door of a championship. So this is what you need these kind of players for. These superstars, they're for these games. Hey, we need to win. We're going to keep it close. Take us home. Be your explosive, unstoppable self, where when everyone knows you're getting the ball, they can't stop it. You can still score and you can take us home. So that's what the Sky have to be hoping for. They can get to that promised land, get to the semifinals, somewhere they haven't been in since 2016, and farther than they've gone. In the James Wade era, that would make this arguably the most successful season because they've never been this far under James Wade. So I think it'd be a tremendous, tremendous accomplishment. So we'll see what happens. Again, the game's going to happen at 4 p.m. CT, and just like all of you, I'll be rooting for the Chicago Sky to win, but just using my head and not using my heart. Unfortunately, I have to pick the Minnesota Lynx. It's going to be a tough game, and the Sky will have to play some of their best basketball to win. We've seen them do that. We've seen them do that against the Storm. We've seen them do it against the Aces. We saw them even the opening night. They had a really good game, very first game of the year against the Washington Mystics. So we're going to need to see that top tier Chicago Sky, though. I think anything less than that, you're not going to win. You're not going to win playing an okay game. You're going to have to shoot better from three. You're going to have to win those rebounding battles, and you're going to have to get some production from the bench, which has been on and off for the Sky. So it's going to have to be more on than off if they want to get the victory. And hopefully they do. I really hope that they do. That would give them a full series in the semifinals. And how exciting would that be for the Chicago Sky to make it to the semifinals after, all of the drama of the year to still be where you want to be? That would be an incredible position to find themselves in at the end of Sunday night's game. So we'll see if they can make it. Again, I'm hoping for it, but we're going to find out on Sunday, so it's very exciting. There's only a couple of days of rest here, and then they're back at it on the second round. If the Sky do pull off the victory, let's dream for a second. If they do pull off the victory, we actually will know who they'll play. They'll play the Connecticut Sun, because the Connecticut are going to play the lowest winner of the two that win. And if the Sky win, right now they're the lowest team still in the playoffs. They're the 6th seed, and they are there's no one lower than them that's made it. 7 and 8 have been kicked out. So we'll see what happens here. I don't think James Wade's probably going to look at anyone besides the Minnesota Lynx because it's the big game. But he does know already mentally, and he can have maybe assistants or something pulling as much tape as they need to on the Connecticut Sun. So they're good to go because they at least know who their opponent will be. Compared to other teams that aren't going to know, because if they're not the lowest like the Sky are, then they're not sure if they'll be in that bracket with the Sun or with the Las Vegas Aces. So that's good news for the Sky. It's another silver lining. They at least know who their opponent would be if they advance, and we'll have to wait and see what happens against the Lynx. Now, as far as this podcast goes, I kind of do want to talk again, update you on where we're going to be in terms of scheduling and how things go. Again, normally we do podcasts every 2 weeks, and that's been pretty consistent all year round. So 2 a month, 1 every 2 weeks. That's kind of what's been happening. But again, it's the playoffs. The players are stepping up. They're bringing up their best selves, and I'm trying to match that energy in what I do, which is cover the game. So I already made my video predicting my second round winners. I predicted that it would be the Lynx, unfortunately, and the Phoenix Mercury. So we'll see if that turns out to be true. I was correct on the winners of the first round, so I got that right. I picked the Sky, and I picked the Mercury, and now I'm picking Lynx and Mercury, so we'll see what happens there. So after those set of games that are going to happen on Sunday, I will be making a video for Monday about the semifinals and who's going to win. So that's kind of the content's going to be on my YouTube channel. In terms of this podcast, it will depend on what happens. If the Sky win, then it's very likely on Monday/Tuesday, I'll put up another Sky in the Shy podcast episode, and we're going to talk about the Minnesota Lynx game, which is obviously would mean we're talking about a Chicago Sky victory. And then we're also going to preview the actual series, because now you're going to get a best-of-5 series instead of these one-off single elimination games. So we'll get a best-of-5 series. That gives you a lot more room, a lot more time, a lot more games. That's going to be really interesting. So we'll have a little bit more to talk about, since it'll be a little more nuanced than just one game, and that's all you get. So that's what I'm working on. That's what I'm focused on. And then we'll see. I would love to do a pod after every single game, and I'm going to really try to do that if we get to the semifinals. I'll have to, again, see the scheduling and see how much of that is possible for me. But I'm boots on the ground, 10 toes down. I'm trying to go as hard as I can for all of you. So if you like that, make sure you're listening to this podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe to it on YouTube. That helps a lot. The YouTube subscriptions, they always make my day when I check them. Like, oh, it went up 2. It went up 1. Like, it's awesome. It goes down sometimes too. So, those are a bummer. But, keeping my eye on the prize, which is just to create the best videos I can and the best coverage of the WNBA. And I do the NBA on my YouTube channel, not on the podcast, of course, but there's a little bit more there if you're interested in more, like those full predictions for the WNBA rounds, which I will continue to do even if the Sky are done. If the Sky lose, I am not sure when I'll do the next pod. Maybe I'll do it after and say, hey, let's get it out there. Let's start previewing the postseason and previewing the offseason. That might be a good idea, just to kind of, put a bow on it and not have to talk about that disappointing loss. I'm sure it would be if it does happen, right? It will be kind of sad. So I'm not sure. I'm likely to do that, but I'm not 100% sure if they lose what I will do. There'll definitely be another pod for sure. And after that, this podcast isn't going anywhere. There's plenty of things to talk about in the offseason. We have where the Chicago Sky players are going to play overseas, which ones are going to play overseas. We have draft prospects with college basketball starting up soon. There's going to be plenty to talk about WNBA and Chicago Sky related, and we'll do that. We might kind of ease off for the next month or two. Maybe we just do one pod to kind of wrap up how things are and preview how things are going. But I don't want to get too ahead of what's going to happen. For all we know, we have another month of podcasts on the playoffs about to happen, right? We have semifinals, finals. Very possible that we are just getting started here. So again, we're going to wait and see. But I do want to give you a heads up on where we're at. So to keep it short here, after the Chicago Sky's game on Sunday, very likely Monday/Tuesday, there'll be a pod up discussing that game and either discussing the semifinal preview or recapping the game and talking about what the offseason will look like. Again, if they lose, I'm just full disclosure, it might be my feelings, might not want to do the pod, but if they win, I'll definitely do the pod because there's games to preview, and I want to make sure that we're doing those previews and then, kind of getting ready for the schedule there. So we'll see. Hopefully there are more Chicago Sky games to talk about very soon, but what we do know is the Chicago Sky play the Minnesota Lynx on Sunday at 4 p.m. CT, so make sure you watch, make sure you support. There's so much good basketball, and it's only going to get better in the WNBA as we go deeper and deeper into the playoffs. And let's hope for Chicago Sky victory. So until next time, have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon.